So we've talked about legacy. We've talked about heroes. We're talking about the future. We're talking about the vision that we have of the world we want to leave behind. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we don't take the time to explain to the people that we're trying to bring along with us that vision that we see. We just jump straight into the next task force or the next strategy or the next list of tactics that we think are going to get us there. But we don't, if people don't know this grand vision that we're moving towards, then you kind of lose the momentum, you lose the opportunity to inspire, which I think you need to persevere. So I'm going to ask y'all to close your eyes. And I want you to think about that vision of the world as you're trying to leave it in that legacy, what you want the world to look like. And I want you to tell me what you see. And I know in my bones, Lisa, that you want to lead this conversation.
There you go. Can I open my eyes?
I want you to, I'll let you open your eyes.
Okay. There's so many things. There are people still in this country that do not have clean drinking water. They do not have access to clean drinking water, and that is a sin. It's a crime, and it's so ridiculous in the most lucrative country in the world. So that, having access to clean drinking water for all people, regardless of what part of the state they live in, what line they're on, whether it's the left side or the right side, I would like to see that. I would like to see where there are, storm waters, that they don't impact the marginal areas, that they're not flooded like other areas, because last time I checked, the more affluent areas don't have flooding problems. Is it because of where they're located? Maybe, maybe not. And then as I go through the world and I travel and I see women, and it's the women, by the way, that are carrying water. That is their primary role, is to carry clean drinking water to their villages for miles. Sometimes they walk.
I think 5 miles is the average.
I mean, I was just in Tanzania 2 weeks ago, and I saw that all day long, and they were carrying this huge not even gallons, these tubs of water on their head, and they weren't even holding them. They knew how to balance, right? To be able to have access to clean drinking water for those areas, because the reason why it's so important is because the water impacts the family, and the family impacts the community, and the community impacts crimes and economics. And so everything starts with water. It begins with water. Most of our body is made of water. Yeah. So being accountable and holding our leaders of water utilities accountable for not just having these programs, which are great, but to hold contracting companies accountable, holding themselves accountable, their board members accountable, to have a diverse bench of leaders. That's what I see as part of that vision. And I think it's happening, and I want it to keep happening.
Stephen, when you close your eyes, what do you see?
Well, I want to look at this industry, right? There's a couple of things. I want to see people be able to have equal footing in our industry, no matter what they look like, man, woman, chicken, or child. It's an English teacher used to tell me that all the time. Man, woman, chicken, or child.
That's right.
I want them to have equal footing. And I also want people to feel confident in themselves. I want people to feel confident in themselves that we do away with the imposter syndrome. I want people to be able to feel comfortable in their own skin and be able to bring their diverse backgrounds, perspectives, and be who they are and show up 100% who they are at work and not be judged for it. And if you get to that point, I mean, that just that spurs so much innovation and good conversation and dialogue if you have these inclusive areas in the workforce where people feel free to bring all of their talents and they're not worried about how it's going to come across. And when we get away I like to get away from all the posturing. You got a lot of posturing. Oh, I did this. Well, I did this, and I did this. And it's like you go to some of the conferences, and that's all it is. Like, why do I care about all you did? First of all, that's going to make me listen to you.
Yeah.
You know, say something important or that was good, and I'll ask you about, you know, how did you get there? But I think there's a lot of posturing. I don't like that either. I just want people to be a little bit more real, down to earth. Let's accept people in and let them be themselves.
Right.
I think it will make for just a much more
Better world.
yeah, just a better environment all around for innovation and for everything else.
So my answer is probably not a little different. I mean, when I sort of reflect on why I got into the industry, which is, you know, living on a small island, very impacted by water, wanting to address the issues that were causing pollution that was impacting my beach.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I got was, yeah, we have to live. We've got basic sort of needs we have to meet. We'll worry about water and the environment later. And, you know, a lot of, you know, what I would say, and I think still say, is water is essentially important, as you said, to life, but also to business and a sustainable sort of society. And that's what I still think we need to achieve. And certainly we haven't necessarily done that. We've, you know, especially in the US, there's been a lot of strides in a lot of places in terms of improving water bodies. And certainly we treat water to levels that we never did, more efficiently than we ever did and all of that. But not everybody has benefited from that. And a lot of people have borne the burden of that more so than others. So there's definitely groups of people who've gotten the benefit, and then there's others who sort of borne that burden. And I think we need to distribute that more equitably. So there's absolutely more work to be done. And I think, you know, where we need to go, and certainly hopefully when I'm done, that's where we're at, is that is a lot more widespread within the US, but certainly beyond the US, that everybody has that access and everybody has that opportunity for, you know, good human health and you know, their well-being, but also that their economy, their society is able to benefit, because I think water impacts a lot more than people really think about. But we're at fault for that as well, that we haven't really pointed that out.
Yeah. There's not a safe way to really remind people of that, do you? I mean, you shut everybody's water off for a day and see what...
Well, as I said, I've absolutely experienced that. And, you know, growing up, you know, you might get water in the morning and during the day you don't. And I had water bottles and I could shower out of a nice little tub, bucket of water, because I have definitely experienced that. I mean, you manage, but it's not ideal. And it absolutely disrupts, I think, society. And I think a lot of people take that for granted here.
Absolutely.
And they don't think about the people who don't have it.
I mean, California, where I'm from, it has a water shortage. I go to South Africa a lot. They didn't have water. What, they have like a gallon per day per person for months. That's what they were working from. And that's crazy. So do without water for a couple of days and see how valuable it is.
Yeah.
Correct. And then how important is it is for you to make sure that everyone has that, right? It's fine if you have it, but you've got to think about the people who don't have that or do not have those clean rivers or streams or beaches to swim in and so on. I think that's where we need to get to next.
Right.
And I like the fact that you talk a little bit about humanizing the water field. It's like, and I always say this, it's like a water issue is not just a water issue, it's a human issue.
Right, it is.
You know?
It is. I think, it is a human issue, but how you solve it depends on where you are. And that's the part with the diversity.
Right.
It is, you know, you have to have the diversity, because what that answer looks like for different people.
For different needs.
How can you do that for a community and make it sustainable if you don't actually understand that community?
You cannot be aware of what the community needs if you don't have people in your organization and your authority that represent the voices of that community. You have no clue what their needs are or how to solve the problem.
Or who they can speak to voice those, because
right.
they don't trust you.
No, they don't trust you. Also, they're like, wait a minute, we just had a flood today, and my neighborhood, it flooded, but the neighborhood above me in different wards, it didn't flood. And by the way, the people that are coming into these town hall meetings don't even look like me. So what am I doing talking to you? You don't know my issues. You don't even represent me. So that's why diversity is not just the right thing to do. Yes, it is, but it is the business thing to do. And I always talk about diversity as a business imperative. It is not just an emotional well-being. It is something that in order to survive, there's this book that says what gets you here doesn't necessarily get you there. Yeah. So in order to get to there, you have to continually reinvent yourself to get to there. And that means listening to the people that represent the communities that we serve.
One size don't fit all.
It should don't.
And that's a foundational piece of the communication argument to it as well, is that if you don't know your audience, you're going to you're going to either come off as completely tone deaf, or you're just not going to reach them at all. And the fact that we just continue to sit around a table with all the same people who've been doing the same thing over and over, who all look the same, and try to guess what this community needs, or this community needs, or this community needs, and how they need to hear it, and what they need to hear, and what their attitudes and beliefs are, and all of that. Like, we're gonna continue. It's insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It's insanity.
That's right.
And to have prided ourselves on being the silent utility for so long, and then to use the word my grandmother used, flabbergasted that how can they not value us? How can they not understand? That's like me wondering why the complete stranger on the street doesn't know me. We're strangers to them. Yeah. And we're even further strangers to those communities who have never had somebody that looks like them represented at the table making decisions for the community at large.
That's right.
Well, and to that point, a lot, even beyond that, some of those decisions have actually harmed them in the past. So why would you trust them? Why would they trust you?
Right. I went to an HBCU, and I'll never forget that on campus during college days, they would have these recruiters come in. And the majority of them were white male, maybe white female, sprinkled in. And I'm thinking, as a student at an HBCU, why would I be attracted to that company that doesn't have anybody representing that looks like me? It wasn't relatable. Right. And that's how we are in the water sector. We have to be relatable. And sometimes it's not neat and tidy. Sometimes it's a little messy. But you have to still listen to all voices. They can't just have a certain dialect or certain vernacular. They can have, whatever voice they have, you have to be willing to listen to them. We have an administrator who works for our CEO who is tied into our community. Her name is Lisa Barton. And she's amazing.
I know
because
her.
They know her. She talks their talk. She walks their walk. She's passionate about her communities that she lives in. Not just that she serves, but she lives there. And she knows what their needs are. And that voice and listening to that voice is imperative for organizations like ours. We have to be willing to listen to the marginalized voice that doesn't have the title.
Well, and beyond listening, that they're actually engaged in the solution
Absolutely.
for them.
And you're empowering them actually to solve problems in that. Not that I would solve it. Right. We would ask her to solve it. Go in and solve it. And she does.
Yeah.
And you look for those results too.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, if we've been doing the same thing over and over again and not getting the results, unfortunately, some people fall in love with the process.
Yeah.
Oh, we got the task force, we got the committee, we're doing this, we're doing that. We've been around for 15 years, and like you mentioned before, nothing has changed.
No, I don't have patience for that.
Yeah.
Analysis paralysis.
Yeah. It was like, but we're doing something.
Yeah.
You know, if I've been
We're
learning how to
talking.
swim for 20 years, should I be happy that I've been trying to learn how to swim for 20 years? No.
No.
I haven't gotten any results.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, it
Yeah.
should be result based.
You don't want to swim if you've been trying that long.
Yeah. And
I know.
if you've been comfortable for that long, then you're not moving towards anything.
No.
You're not changing
No.
anything. Like
No.
if you've just been like, I've been comfortably having this conversation for the past 20 years. And it's a dog and pony show, and people can smell that a mile away.
Yeah.
And then what you do is
They
you
know.
further alienate people when you start to get in like the tokenism, and it just be like, oh, got to put this person here because got to like optics,
Right.
you know, and there's nothing of
Right.
value
Well,
remaining
and it's
behind
not
it.
sustainable.
And
right?
do me a
'Cause that was
favor.
one of
When
them.
you hire a diverse candidate, whether it's a female or a person of color, don't say they are hired because they are we needed a female, or because we needed a person of color.
That's
I've heard that all the
That's awful.
time. No, I was hired because I was the best candidate for the role. Claim it, believe it, live it.
Mhm.
You
And
know?
chances are you were probably like next level best candidate for the
Yeah,
role because you had to
yeah.
be better.
And I just happened to be a female, and I just happened to be a person of color.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
I know. Yeah.
Should we cheers?
Cheers,
Yeah.
yes. Cheers, my friend. Have fun. I can't
Nice.
reach all over there, but cheers.
All right. That's funny.
Or
But I
shall
mean, we
say-
clearly have, we're clearly all vocal,
No.
opinionated, not
This
opinionated, not
No.
opinionated, but people with opinions about a variety of topics. And you know, when you take that, when you have that vulnerability to step out there, it can be, you can almost kind of isolate yourself when you're kind of taking that step out front. And I know that, especially during COVID, when we were all kind of forced inward,
Yeah.
I had those moments when I really was like, I tend to feel on the alone side very often, and I have to work really hard and go to my support system around me to remind me that is not, that's not true. And I'm surrounded by people who support me and who believe in me. But, you know, that doesn't mean that I don't get in my head and it doesn't feel like a very lonely place
Yep.
out there.
Very
And that really hit me really hard during COVID because
Oh.
I was physically alone too,
Yeah.
which like helped with the mental isolation piece, you know?
Yeah.
And so like I wonder sitting here in this group with people who I feel very aligned with, you know, like what do y'all, am I alone in that? Am I alone in the feeling of feeling alone in leadership?
No. I was a first senior executive team member of my authority in a very male-dominated industry. I was also a person that wasn't part of this industry. I was a newbie. I was from the financial services. I was Freddie Mac and HSBC. Those are, and AOL Time Warner. I was very, large companies, private companies, stakeholders, all of that, or stockholders. But I rely on, one, my family, because one, they will love me in spite of, not because of. They know everything about me and love me anyway. They're my support system. I can come as I am. I also have a group of great friends. Some of them are former colleagues from other companies that are my lifelong friends, and that now they're my friend family.
Yeah.
And
Your chosen family.
Right. And because I'm a chief people and inclusion officer, I can't say what I want to say and dump on anybody at the company. I have to keep some things very confidential. Even if I do want to say what I want to say, I don't, because I know that it could compromise the authority. But you have to find the people in your inner circle that you can confide in and that you can talk to, that lift you up, but also who are truth tellers. Because friends don't just nod and say what you want to hear. They'll also say, girl, Paul. They'll be like,
Pump the brakes.
Yeah.
This is a bad idea.
yeah. You need to, yeah. So that's what I do for my support system.
I feel like in some cases I'm like trying to instigate the fight for you, and you're telling me to pump the brakes.
No, it's funny. I mean, I go back to the same thing, friends and family.
Yep.
But but I never really had a lot of people in the industry
Yeah.
that I knew whenever I would go to a conference or something like that. It was for training.
Right.
Again, very transactional. Come in, get my training. All right, got my
Right.
hours. Boom, I'm out of
Right.
here.
Right.
But then it's like, no, you know what? There's a lot of like-minded people here
Yeah.
that can create that network of resources and support,
Definitely.
so that when you do run into things, you have people who you can turn to.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, and so that's something I
Mhm.
would say over the last 10 years that I've really have expanded, and it's been greatly beneficial.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I would say similar, but I definitely have a few text groups and WhatsApp groups, and I think, you know, in sort of leadership, whether it be WEF or, you know, within Arcadis or whatever, I don't think I get through the day, or I'm still here,
Yeah.
you know, not in jail,
Yeah.
but here without some of those groups that are like people of color or Caribbean people or whatever,
Oh,
that
yeah.
I just have that group that it's like, did you hear this? Did you see this? Or, you know, talk me off of a ledge, or, you know,
Right.
different things like that. And I think that's invaluable, especially when you're in a space where you are one of very few or one of one, that you have to have your group that you trust absolutely, but that understand your experience and can relate to it, that you
Yeah.
can talk through those things with, or, you know, they can talk you off a ledge or whatever that is. Or, as you said, they're your sort of support
Yeah.
sponsor that they help you, like, you know, so there's definitely a couple of groups that I'm in that we are looking out for each other as they move on in
yeah.
their careers. I mean, we may do different things, but I know they have my back 100%.
Yeah.
And they're doing whatever it is, whether that's information or whatever it is, to help me get forward, and I'm doing the same for them.
Right.
And that has been absolutely invaluable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and
and I think everybody should have something like that.
I
But-
agree.
and it's funny because at first my resources and support, I mean, they're great friends and my family, but they can't necessarily understand everything that I'm
No.
doing
No.
or going
Right.
through
Not-
in
no.
the
No,
industry.
they're
Not
like,
at all. Not at
I'm
all.
trying to explain something that is like, yo, man, I don't get it.
Yeah.
So it's like you need to have people in the industry.
You do.
need to have people in the industry that actually can understand and they see the same things you see.
Yes.
And now it's relatable.
Yes.
You know, it's like,
my family's like, they still see the septic truck, and they say, "What you do?" I'm like,
I know. They don't understand what I do.
it's like
They don't
same
understand.
but
They do not.
different.
Yeah.
They just know I have a nice office that faces out on the water. And they're like, ooh, Lisa, good office, big office. That's what they know.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I do think that having people in the industry and being part of like DEI committees and associations has really helped me break into the industry. I look forward to even expanding my network as I continue to work in the water sector. But I think, you know, if you were to go to my house and have a party at my house, you would not know who was hostessing the house. You wouldn't know if they were black, white, Asian, Hispanic, gay, straight. You would not know, because my group of people don't look like me. The people that are my peeps, they're my family, don't look necessarily like me. Sometimes they don't even have the same ideas as I may have. They have different, you know, interests. And those are the people that I surround myself with. And that's what I like for diversity and in the industry, is to be okay with being part of groups that you're not part of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's
true.
how you grow.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm an only child. I'm adopted. I moved around every 2-3 years with my dad being in the military, so never had a hometown. So we were talking earlier about building your own tribe. I'm very passionate and love deeply my chosen family.
Yes.
So I think
Amen.
that's important.
Right
I
on.
include you in that.
Same.
And I
Same.
want to thank y'all for taking this time and having these conversations with me. It
Thank
means
you.
so much to me. And thank you for continuing to raise the bar.
We love
with
you,
me.
Sam.
Thank you.
We're proud of you.
Thank you for having us.
We really are. This has been amazing.